What is up, guys? Media Master Menard here today, bringing you guys another video. And as you can tell by the title, today we're reviewing Dark Phoenix. It's part of the X-Men series of movies, and it's the last movie that's going to be done by Fox before the transition over into Disney's hands. And I've always had a soft spot for the X-Men movies in my heart. I don't know what it is. I've just always found the story about the mutants and how they're kind of more of a team than individual heroes really intriguing, so keep that in mind during this review. But let's get right into it, because there's been a lot of negative press surrounding this movie, and I have to say I definitely disagree with a lot of the criticisms it's getting. And so the story starts off, we get to see a young Jean Grey in kind of the first moment where she learns to fear her powers, and that's because she kind of erupts and causes her mom to go mindless for a second, and they get in a car crash and she believes it kills both of her parents. So she feels a lot of guilt, and we get to see Charles Xavier come up to her and try to console her and be like, hey, I've got a place for special people. We kind of all know how the X-Men mansion goes at this point. And then we flash forward, and the X-Men are going on a mission to save a rocket mission into space that has gone awry. They've been called on by the President of the United States, and so they go out there, and I believe there's Raven, who's Mystique, Nightcrawler, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, and Beast. And so we see that. And when they go out there, they go and they save the astronauts, but after they save the astronauts, like, our captain's still in there, so they go back in there and use Jean to hold the ship together, and that's when this cosmic entity enters her body. And this is quite interesting, because at this time we can see she's already afraid of her powers from what she's shown in X-Men Apocalypse, how she used the Phoenix to destroy Apocalypse. And she's kind of afraid of it, but Xavier encourages her, hey, it's okay, you can do this. And then, so they come back to Earth, and Jean's health is in incredibly good condition, and so you're kind of like, hey, that's not right, and everyone in the movie's like, that's not right, something's wrong, but she's like, no, everything's amazing, I feel like better than I ever had, and she's getting this surge of power until she kind of just loses control, and she starts to break down mentally. And a lot of this movie is following her journey as she tries to figure out how to deal with it internally, what she's become and how much power she has, and that she has the power to be a monster, kind of. And so that's kind of a lot of what this movie deals with. And there's also a plot with these aliens that come down. I'm not necessarily sure who they were supposed to be, because they weren't developed much and they weren't named very much. We'll talk about that a little later. So that's kind of as far as I'm going to go with kind of laying the groundwork for what happens in this movie. After that, it's spoilers, and I don't want to give away too much, even though this story has been done in previous movies. Obviously, this take on it is a little bit different. Regarding the story overall, I'm very on the fence, to be honest, guys, because there's some things this movie does good, and there's other things it does bad. And let's kind of start with the bad here. And I think the fact that they kind of focused so much on the alien side plot but didn't really explain them at all really hurt the movie a lot. I thought they would have been better served just focusing on the Phoenix and inside of Jean Grey's mind, because this was really her movie, and obviously Sophie Turner is playing her, so it's star power there, and you really think they could have explored more into the personal story of how she dealt with the Phoenix. And I thought they could have gone a lot more into kind of how the X-Men reacted to her being the Dark Phoenix and having this cosmic entity inside of her, because we see like a couple scenes between Storm and Cyclops and Beast and Professor X, but we really don't get much more than that. I thought they could have gone into that a little more, which would have made it a little more interesting. And when I was watching this movie, I kind of have started to think that maybe X-Men is better done in a TV format. I've always loved the X-Men cartoons and all of the stuff surrounding that, because I think X-Men is something where it doesn't necessarily fit into the mold of a movie with these crazy consequences. I think looking at their day-to-day lives and the struggles of being a mutant is what makes them so interesting. That's just kind of a side tangent. But let's say what this movie did do good, and it does have quite a lot of things that I did find enjoyable. The moments where it did focus on Jean and her internal struggle were really amazing. I thought especially when she went to go visit Magneto, some interesting things happen and we get to see what's going through her mind and how desperate she is to get some answers. And I thought also, like I mentioned, the few moments where they did have kind of Cyclops or Beast or Professor X kind of thinking about their decisions. Professor X in particular, he did some things in the past I don't want to spoil, but I think those were some really poignant moments in the movie, so I think it ended up feeling like an okay plot because I think the good and the bad balanced each other out pretty evenly here. As far as the acting goes, obviously they have some real heavy hitters in this movie. And let's just start by talking about Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique. She does a great job, as she always has, but I think there's been a lot of complaints surrounding, hey, she's not Mystique. Mystique isn't this nice person who's changed for the good ever, and I understand that point of view, but I do think that Jennifer Lawrence is doing a good job playing her, and I kind of like the way Mystique has evolved in this new generation of X-Men. It's a shame that it's all going to waste, but let's not get into that. But I thought Jennifer Lawrence did a good job, besides the really uncomfortable kind of weird girl power moment. I mean, guys, I'm all for that stuff, but when it's shoehorned into a movie like that, it was just very, very cringy. And I feel like you're not getting the right message across when you shoehorn it in a movie like that. But looking past that, I thought Jennifer Lawrence did a good job, and that was kind of somewhat out of her control. Obviously, Sophie Turner is the star of the show here, and this tells you how good of a job she did. And let's just put it this way. The only problem I had with Sophie Turner in this movie was the fact that I just see her as Sansa Stark, because she was just such a good actor that, like, I totally believe that Sophie Turner is Sansa Stark. I mean, I see her in real life videos and see her acting kind of like a normal human being and not Sansa, and I'm like, who is this looking like Sansa? Like, stop pretending, it just messes me up so much that an actor can have so much versatility and go back and forth from one role to another and kind of be so different. But I thought she did a really good job. There was a couple times I thought maybe her British accent kind of came through, and I was like, whoa, that sentence was like half an American accent, half in a British accent. But I'm not too nitpicky about that stuff, guys. I thought she did a really good job, as she does in Game of Thrones, with kind of the facial expressions and wearing her emotions on her face, but not in a too obvious of a way. So honestly, big props to Sophie Turner, guys. Honestly, everyone knows I'm in love with the redheads. Shout out to the redhead gang. But obviously, Sophie Turner did a fantastic job. I've said that like 5 times. She did a great job, guys. One thing I really wished was going to happen more in this movie was some Quicksilver, like, high-speed scenes, and we honestly only got like 1.5. One of them got cut short, so that was kind of sad. But I mean, those were some of the best parts of all the newer X-Men movies that everybody enjoyed, where like everybody is in slow motion and Quicksilver's at regular speed, so you can just tell what he's doing actually, and it's kind of cool to see that different perspective of somebody that's super fast instead of just seeing him zip around everywhere. As far as the special effects go in general, I mean, the one speed scene that we did have was really good. Nightcrawler looked incredible in this movie, guys. Like, the way he was teleporting around was absolutely insane. And last but not least, all the effects with like Magneto's ability and Jean Grey's abilities, especially Jean Grey's abilities, were like really good CGI and like really sick. I thought they did a good job of like conveying their power compared to the rest of the people in this movie. Like, you just realize like Jean Grey is a god. And obviously the X-Men movies, because they're made by Fox, always kind of have a different vibe to them. So they didn't necessarily translate the fact that Jean Grey is like Thanos level of power, but I think they did a good job in kind of the Fox universe. I'll be very curious to see how Disney handles the X-Men going forward. I've heard they're going to give them a little break and give them some time to breathe before they re-implement them into the MCU, but I'm, like I said, very curious to see what they do there. The fight scenes in this movie were really well done. It was really good to see that they've come so far from like the original X-Men movie back in the day, because I watched that movie recently and the action was very cheesy, guys. They've made a real big step up now. And I thought, particularly at the end of the movie, Magneto and Nightcrawler were doing some really sick things. I mean, they were going ham, guys. They were doing their job. But I want to circle back around to kind of the plot and the pacing. And I think the pacing was a really big area where this movie suffered, because at the beginning it was like all just Jean worrying about the power inside of her, and towards the end there was really none of that introspective stuff going on. It was all just kind of the plot advancing. So I thought they could have intermixed the two a little better, and it would have been a better movie. And I think, kind of like I mentioned earlier, the alien plot, if it was going to be done that poorly, it would have just been better for the pacing for it not to be there at all. But like I also said, for every negative there's a positive in this movie, and I thought they really did nail the ending of this movie, and it was a good conclusion to kind of the Fox run Marvel shows. I mean, they've run out of time and now it's going over into Disney's hands. So what will happen now, we don't know, but I do think we got a very satisfying conclusion to the end of an era. But overall, guys, I thought it was a very solid film, but I'm going to acknowledge my bias. My cat's name is Jean, and it was named after Jean Grey. So obviously I was very excited about this movie, so I'm just going to acknowledge that up front. But I want to know what you guys thought about this movie and the X-Men series as a whole. Did you like it? Did you hate it? How does it stack up compared to the MCU? And what do you think, once it becomes part of the MCU and Disney takes over, is going to happen to the franchise? Let me know the answer to all those questions down in the comments below. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We'll be bringing you guys more movies, TV, video game, and anime content. I'll leave a link to my Twitter down in the description below so you can find out when I post a new video. And until then, this is Master Menard, signing off.
Now look at the top, I'm going crazy, who wearing the crown? Schooly bop, doodly bolly doo.